Isn't that exciting? Recording in progress. Okay, so I welcome all of you to today's session, today's class, today's I don't know what we call it, gathering. I like to call it a gathering. It's a class we learn from each other, and it's a really lovely thing. So last time we were, in a sense, right in the middle. If you were by any chance following the Chabad website link that's on the page. Um, we were looking at a teaching that was a teaching by a Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, is his name. And we stopped right in the middle of the teaching because we ran just short of time there. And we were looking at one of his teachings, which said the following. He would say, one who is pleasing to his fellow man, not meaning gender man, but capital M, one who is pleasing to his fellow man is pleasing to God. But one who is not pleasing to his fellow man is not pleasing to God. So basically, we were saying that if somebody is pleasing to other people like that person. They feel that they have a very nice personality. There's a nice way about them. They speak kindly and softly. It doesn't mean that everybody has to agree with you or that you have to agree with everybody, but there are ways of being disagreeable. There are ways of being nice about it. And if we have time, I'll give you one anecdote about that. But Rabbi Hanina, the son of Dosa, is saying if people generally like somebody, you can probably take a good educated guess that the Lord loves them too. That is his teaching. Okay, we'll say a little bit more about that. What kind of catches our attention is the fact that he also says, and one who is not pleasing to his fellow men is not pleasing to God. So basically, he's just saying the opposite. If you are pleasing to others, God loves you. If you're not pleasing to others, probably God does not love you. And at the tail end of last week's session, I asked the question, why is he just merely repeating the opposite side of it? You don't need to say it. If you've already said one side, if people love you, God loves you, you don't need to say, and if they don't love you, God probably doesn't love you. So that's kind of where we ended off last week. And this week we're going to get what I think is a very important lesson in sociability and a very important theological lesson, at least from the Jewish perspective. So, what is basically the teaching imparting to us? That a person beloved on earth by other people is certainly beloved in heaven. He doesn't even say in the text is probably or likely loved by God or by heaven. He says it with a certain measure of surety and confidence. And so he is saying one who is loved on earth is likely to be modeling the very high values of their faith, and that makes God very happy. That's probably what he's teaching. By living an exemplary life, you cause God to look good in the world because you are living the kind of life that God has taught through whatever faith text that you have. So for the Jewish people, it's the way of life that God has taught through the Torah or through other kinds of Jewish text vehicles. And God appreciates that. That's the sense of uh, God loving you. He appreciates the way you live. He likes the way you make him look good. You live his values, and that makes you beloved in heaven. So now we want to understand better what does it mean when he just says it in reverse? What is he teaching us extra? He didn't need to say, and if you're not beloved by others, God doesn't love you too. It almost goes without saying that that's true according to Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. So here is a very, very important point. I'm sure it's not just important in Judaism. I'm sure it's very important across many faith traditions. And the point that I think Rabbi Hanina is trying to drive home is that you may think that you can do all other things to please God, everything else but human relations. So you may think that you don't have to be careful in interpersonal relations, but you only really need to be careful in your divine relationships. So you might think that you can give charity and study your faith texts, keep the main laws and rituals of your faith, but you may think that you don't need to be that careful about your human relationships. Human relationships, as symbolized by if other people like you, certainly God loves you. And what Rabbi Hanina is saying, that is not the correct way to think. So he puts it in reverse. And he says, if you are unpleasant to people, if you mistreat them, or if you ignore them, or if you degrade them, or dishonor other people, you can do all of the other good things that your religion asks you to do. But if this part, this human relationship part, is missing, God in the end will not be pleased with you. So that's why he says it in the negative. And if other people are not happy with you, if they don't like you, if they're not pleased with you, meaning you've probably done something in your character or personality to make you become repelled by others. And that's not a good way to be an example of God and his teachings in whatever faith text one lives by. So if that human relationship part is missing, you can be, let's say, quote, religious. You can be observant in all the other ways that you feel are important. But if you miss that sociability, if you miss that human aspect of it, if you're not nice to people, you can almost be assured that God is not happy with you, no matter all the other things that you're doing. And we find something a little bit deeper than that. And this is my own psychological insight. I haven't seen it anywhere. You tell me if I'm way off, or you may have no opinion about this whatsoever. I personally believe that the subtlety that's being mentioned here is that if you're not nice to people, but you're 100% honoring God through the rituals, texts, study, prayer, etc., but you're really not nice to people, in my opinion, it's almost a predictor that with all the external trimmings of piety that you do, there's something in your loyalty to God that is also lacking. What do I mean to say? That if you're not nice to people in a way that would have them evaluate you as, well, he's a nice person. He's a nice person. If you're not nice to people, but you claim to be religious and pious, I would say there is something basically askew in your piety and religiosity with God.
I agree.
Say more about that if you agree, if you don't mind.
I agree. That strikes a chord with me, Rabbi.
Why? Why? If I can ask us.
Because I think God has made us, and He has imparted His nature to us. And okay, we're sinful, fallen men, but we still bear the divine nature, and so therefore, it's natural for us as God's children to love the rest of creation.
Okay. One might also say that because we are God's creations, if you don't comport yourself nicely with God's creations, one could say that's almost an insult to God Himself.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're not nice to the creations,
yeah,
how fully nice are you really to the Creator?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I hear that.
Yeah, we've
Can I?
always heard.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, isn't it? Doesn't it say in the Torah that love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, but also love your neighbor as yourself? And loving
Yes,
your neighbor as yourself is really just reflecting what you just said, Rabbi.
thank you. Yeah, love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus 19:18.
Thank you. Right.
And you love the Lord thy God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might is Deuteronomy 6, I think. 6 through 11 is that whole chunk. Um, yeah. So, John, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, we've all experienced those that are kind of the quote unquote holier than thou mentality, right? Where
Yes.
pious are they know their studies, they're observant, but don't treat others how they should. And so one of the things obviously that can cause is someone to fall away from Hashem when you experience that person versus being drawn to them.
Right.
And then the flip side of the coin, what that tells me that just kind of stuck out is, if you have someone that's maybe new to the faith and is not studied, and they may think they're less than someone who has more biblical knowledge, that things that we can focus on is our relationship to other people, and that matters. So you don't, if you're new to study or whatever, that we can do, and that is just treat others with respect.
Very nice. Beautiful thoughts. Yeah, Brooke, what did you want to say?
I believe everything's interconnected. And so if we're created in God's image, when I look at other people and I think about how I treat them, I think about that. We're all created in God's image. So how I'm treating the other person is how I treat God, in a sense. In my mind, that's how I kind of keep it.
Nice.
Steve and I and someone else we were talking this weekend, and I there's a book by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and
Yes.
it's Garden of Peace, right? Maybe you've read it. I don't know. And
I know we have it.
yeah, in there it mentions, if I have my books correctly, correct. It mentions that how a man treats his wife is how he relates to God too. So I look at that, I'm like, oh, I gotta get better. Sometimes, in our lives. But
Right.
I think it's all connected. The way we treat other people is how we relate to God Himself.
Very nice. Very nice. So there's a teaching. If you go to Exodus 19, I think it is, right before the Ten Commandments are given. Interestingly enough, in the Torah, it does not say, here are the Ten Commandments. It says, these are the sayings. And from that, the scholars discern 10 different commandments, if you will. Right. So right before the people gather at the foot of Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, to receive the commandments, there's a 3-day period that they need to cleanse themselves, which is what the Torah describes. Cleanse yourselves. It says to the men, separate from the women so that you're spiritually pure on the day that I give the Torah. It's a 3-day period of cleansing, whatever that cleansing involved. There's one great rabbi who passed away a few years ago. His name was Rabbi Abraham Twersky. He was very, very beloved, very popular. He was a therapist. He dealt with all kinds of addictions. Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky. He opened up a place in Pittsburgh called Gateways, which welcomed anybody and everybody, race, creed, color, sexual, didn't matter. Everybody was welcome there to help deal with their addictions. He wrote many, many books. I once had the pleasure of introducing him in my synagogue in Baltimore, and I introduced him as having authored 60 books. And then he gets up and he says, "Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. I just have to correct you, Rabbi Adler. I didn't really write 60 books. I wrote one book 60 different ways." In other words, he had one theme, and he just came in through different doors that allowed people opportunities to really connect with him in their own way, 60 different ways, whatever. The reason I mention that is because in his Torah commentary, Rabbi Abraham Twersky says, and I don't know if he saw this in Hasidic writings, perhaps, he says, what were those 3 days for? The 3 days were for the people to practice a term that I think we used in our early classes, derech eretz, which means being kind, nice, sympathetic, compassionate, sensitive, empathetic to each other. It was a 3-day period of learning how to be good people towards one another. And if you're a good people, that is the best groundwork for being able to hear and accept the Torah. Because if you're not going to be nice and you're going to follow the commandments, people are not going to be nice to you, and people won't want to follow the commandments if you are a kind of a person that represents the commandments, but you're not nice, you're not likely to draw people towards you, towards God, the commandments, your faith texts, etc. So that was his take on it. And I wish I know where it is in my notes in a folder. I don't believe I have a source for that, but he mentions it. That 3 days of practicing being nice. So it's just interesting. Sometimes people say, "What would you like on your epitaph, on your gravestone? If you're going to have a gravestone, what would you like written on it?" For me, I mean, I haven't recorded this anywhere. But for me, just the words, he was a nice man. And but with me and my wife Rivka is almost a joke because when people say, when they meet her and they know that we're husband and wife, they will 99 out of 100 times say, that husband, that husband of yours, what a nice man. Now, if she would only ask, really, can you give me 10 examples that I can tell my husband? That would go a long way. But it doesn't matter why they think I'm a nice man. Frankly, it's such a simple phrase, and to me, it just fills my heart every time I hear it. He's a nice man. If that's all that was on my gravestone, I would be a happy person. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, reactions before we move on to the next Mishnah, the next teaching? Okay, good. So now, in the listing of the Chabad teachings, if you're following along, we're now looking at teaching number 11. Teaching number 11. And from number 11, we're going to extract a couple of lessons. We're going to focus on two of the lessons there. It says that Rabbi Elazar of Modi'in is a city that's about 40 minutes from where I am now. Modi'in was an area where a lot of the Hanukkah miracles happened, even though it happened in Jerusalem in the Holy Temple. But there were battles, Maccabees, etc., the Syrian Greeks. A lot of that happened in Modi'in. So Rabbi Elazar of Modi'in, in teaching number 11, has several teachings, and again, we're just going to focus on a couple of them. He says, one who profanes holy things consecrated for the service of God in the holy temple, and then he has a few more examples, has no share in the world to come. One who desecrates things that are holy. So he talks about things that are holy in the holy temple. But for us, being that we are bereft of the holy temple since the year 70, we want to wonder to ourselves, what is this teaching us today? How is that relevant in today's life, whether it's a Jewish life or a life in a different faith tradition? What is this possibly teaching us? So he says that you forfeit your share in the world to come, again, by desecrating or not honoring holy things of the Holy Temple. But in terms of everyday usage, the wider meaning is that every faith tradition has their holy things. You have your holy stuff. Could be books, it could be ritual items, could be people. But every faith tradition has that which it regards as holy, with an H, not a WHOLLY. It's a holy type of thing, definitely not mundane or commonplace. I'll give you some examples in Judaism. The Torah, the scroll that we find in the Holy Ark in every synagogue across the world, we treat it very, very carefully. At some point in a service where the Torah is going to be removed from the Ark and it's going to be read, somebody goes to the Ark, opens the curtain, and removes a Torah scroll, holds it very, very carefully and lovingly, and then walks the Torah scroll to a reading table in the middle of the congregation so it can be unrolled and read. Now, interesting question. What happens if the Torah is dropped? So I will tell you, I've only been present maybe 3 times in my whole life, and I'm 45 today. No, I'm not. In my whole life, I maybe have seen a dropped Torah 3 times, tops. One time in my own synagogue, it was dropped. What can you do? Human beings holding a holy object. Sometimes whoever does it is a little frail. You never know. So what do you do when you drop a Torah? So if you put 100 averagely educated Jewish people in a room and say, what do you do when a Torah is dropped and you're witness to it? You're in the synagogue when this happens. 80 out of 100 say you fast for 40 days, which is not accurate. One suggestion is you fast for the rest of the day until sundown. That's a lot less than 40 days. Those people who are there present and saw the falling Torah, the rabbi would recommend that if you can't fast, at the end of Shabbat, you make a donation to charity. As a way of saying, we're so sorry we're in the presence of a dropped Torah. We know it's holy. We're sorry it was dropped. We're sorry that we were witness to that. And that's what you do. So that's a pretty relevant example of how much we need to cherish holy things. Let's say I had what we call in Hebrew a chumash, which is a volume of the 5 books of the Torah. Let's say accidentally I dropped it. I'm moving books around the table and boom, it falls on the floor. There I don't have to fast or give charity unless I want to, but the custom is to kiss it. You drop a holy book. In Judaism, you give a kiss to the book. You drop a siddur, you drop a prayer book. Any holy book, you drop it and then you pick it up and you kiss it, which is an extension of this teaching that we try not to make mundane the holy objects of our tradition. An extension of this is to honor rabbis and scholars. So the way we do it is when a rabbi or a scholar, male or female, walks into a room or is called to the front where the lectern or a podium is to give a class, a discussion, whatever, the tradition is to rise. That's the tradition. We stand up, we rise. It's something that I wish in my girls' high school where I teach, I wish that was taught, that when a rabbi or a scholar, male or female, walks in the room, you stand up. I can't teach it because it would look very self-serving. But every once in a while, the teachers at a meeting will say, this really ought to be done. And then we get to, well, what about math teachers? They ought to respect that too. What about science teachers? And that's really pretty much where it goes off tangent and everybody has a cup of coffee, orders sushi, and we never discuss it again. So, but that's another expression of not treating the holy as mundane or everyday or humdrum. What do we do with holy texts? I often make photocopies of holy texts when I teach a class. So what do I do with those that were not collected or people left it on the table? I have no room to now put 50 things in a folder, whatever. In the Jewish tradition, we have a certain place. Every synagogue will have a box or a container where if you have torn pages out of a Bible, torn pages out of a holy book, out of a prayer book, photocopies that are in Hebrew, etc., every synagogue has, just about every synagogue, will have a box or a container called the Shemot box. And the idea of Shemot means God's names. Anything that contains God's name in Hebrew, we would then put it in a box to be gathered, and all the contents of that box eventually gets buried in a Jewish cemetery. So here in Guy, how are you?
Great. Great to
Great.
be here.
Nice to have you. Just remind me where you live.
I live in Central Florida,
Near Central Florida. What city?
Lake Placid,
There's a
about
Lake
an
Placid.
hour.
There's a Lake
Yeah, there's
Placid
Lake
in Florida.
Placid, and there's alligators here too.
Oh, wonderful. Put one on. Put one on. We'd like to see. Anyway, nice to have
Yeah,
you.
great to be
Yeah,
here.
thank you. So, if you went to any Jewish community here in Israel, people know where the boxes are near the shopping centers. Where the boxes are, if you have a buildup of pages, um, tattered pages from any holy book, or Xerox copies, photocopies from anything that has God's name in it, on it, that's where you deposit it. And again, eventually that gets buried. So when you go to the Western Wall, when you go to the Kotel in Jerusalem, the holy city, the old city of Jerusalem, um, by extension of this teaching that those who take the holy and treat it mundane, it's an extension there too at the Kotel, that when you're standing in front of that holy wall, you really ought to be careful how you're behaving, what you're doing, what you're saying. Giggling, laughing is not appropriate at such a setting. So it extends to things even of that nature. Any sacred space, you go into a synagogue and you start fooling around and whatever, it's just not an appropriate way to treat that which is holy, that which is elevated, that which is respected. And so, what Rabbi Elazar of the city of Modi'in is saying is that you get no share in the world to come, which is a big deal in the Jewish tradition. You get no share in the world to come if you treat the holy as mundane, because it comes across as being cynical, rebellious, and contemptible. So you would say, I didn't mean to be cynical, rebellious, and contemptible. But Rabbi Elazar of Modi'in is saying, yeah, but it comes across that way. So just be careful how you treat that which is holy in your particular faith tradition. So that's a very lovely teaching, I think. Um, and there's another teaching now in teaching number 11, where he says, here's another person who has no share in the world to come. I'll read the phrase for you in Hebrew and then translate. Hamalbin penei chavero berabim. One who humiliates his friend in public has no share in the world to come. Again, having a share in the world to come is important in the Jewish tradition, as it may well be in others. What he's saying is one who humiliates or embarrasses someone in public, knowingly, unknowingly, everybody makes mistakes, but knowingly to shame, embarrass, call out somebody in a negative way in public, that removes you from having a share in the world to come. Somebody once called it in a book on Pirke Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, that I was reading. Somebody said that shaming somebody or embarrassing somebody in public is a physical and psychic murder. That's wow. That's pretty serious. Physical and psychic murder. Why? Because they say you destroy the image of the person. And his teaching in Hebrew uses the word malbin, which comes from the Hebrew word lavan, which comes from the word white. It means white. Somebody who causes someone else's face by embarrassing them to turn white. In other words, they are so shamed that the blood recedes from the face and their face turns white. Interestingly enough, I always thought, and you'll tell me if I'm right or wrong, I always thought that if somebody is embarrassed, their face doesn't turn white, but it rather turns red. So every time I read this teaching that one who turns his friend's face white because you've embarrassed them, humiliated them, I always felt like it's the wrong color, but who am I? Who am I? The basic teaching is you have to be very, very careful about not shaming or embarrassing other people in public. Now, we may think that this teaching is referring to someone spreading a rumor or a good piece of gossip or shaming or embarrassing. But in truth, when you say the truth, it can also turn into something that can shame and embarrass. And I'll give you an example. I often teach in Jerusalem in a retired residence home, as I do here in Efrat, among other teachings of different classes. And one time I was there and I was talking about the same rabbi that I mentioned a few minutes ago, Rabbi Abraham Twersky, a Hasidic rabbi who passed away about 2, 3 years ago. Lovely, lovely man. Again, dealt with all kinds of helping all kinds of people with their addictions, etc. I was once talking about Rabbi Twersky in a group of about 20, 30 retirees, and I was extolling his virtues because I love the man. I heard him speak many times. I drove him back and forth to a lecture that he gave in a synagogue here in Efrat, and we had a connection. It was very, very lovely. And I mentioned his name, right? Innocent, nice Rabbi Abe Twersky. All of a sudden, a woman says, "You mean the Abe Twersky that is involved with addictions and wrote all those books about life and bettering your life and stuff?" And I proudly said, "Yeah, that's exactly who I'm talking about." And then she starts saying, "That no good, Nick." And she started berating him because of, I don't know what, I don't remember the story. So it all ended up that in her estimation, this rabbi was a nobody and a nothing. So, here I am. I stepped into a landmine, not knowing that anybody had anything harmful, bad, negative to say about him. And she just exploded with a lot of what I call vitriol about him. Why do I mention that? Because even if you say something true, sometimes you just have to be very, very careful, even with a truth that can cause embarrassment. Okay, I just wanted to put that idea out there. So, shaming someone in public, desecrating holy things, they both make someone, according to Rabbi Elazar of Modi'in, they both make someone forfeit a share in the world to come. No matter how learned they are, how many good deeds they've done, that's his teaching. What do you say about that? Any questions, observations, reactions?
I agree.
Thank, thank you, counselor. Yeah, you agree. If you were to be the teacher of such a teaching, would you suggest that maybe there ought to be less of a punishment penalty? Should it be a little bit more lenient? Do you feel this is very harsh? You know, I'll tell you the truth. If you were if you went to a synagogue on a regular basis, um, and you were to count the number of times the rabbi, the clergy person, would mention the value and the importance of the world to come, I don't know that you would hear it that often, honestly. So, not that it's not an important value, it is, and there are many teachings that say that we build up our credit in this world by doing the rituals and the commandments, etc. We do it to build up credit in this world to present that credit card as an entryway to the world to come. That's a very popular teaching. At the same time, I'll tell you from my experience, I don't hear it a lot from a pulpit, from a sermon. If I were to quantify it, I don't know that I've heard that idea 10 times. So I asked that question. Do you feel that maybe it's a very, very high penalty Um, um, do you hear about this in your faith tradition? Is this too high a price to pay? Or is it, boy, that's exactly right. You can be the most righteous, blah, 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 but if you are part of your repertoire is to embarrass, degrade, etc., you have lost your share in the world to come. And by the way, nobody really knows what their share in the world to come might be. We just don't know. There's no, I don't get a monthly a monthly email saying here are the points you've earned in the world to come. So let me just step back and yeah, John, and then we'll go to others who.
Yeah, I was just going to say it. I would assume the reason it's not talked about that much is from what I've heard in my experience when I listen to rabbis, it's more about perfecting the here and now, perfecting
Yes.
the world here versus the world to come. Um, but but one thought on the severity of the punishment, I always think that, yes, at first glance it does seem severe, but then it's like, well, one, this is probably someone that's perpetually doing this. I'm not sure the right word, but like that lives a lifestyle in that way. But then also anyone can repent with sincerity and then not have that punishment. So
Oh, so there is a punishment for it. There is a reproof for this kind of behavior, but at the same time, there's a escape clause that if you are sincerely repent at some point in your life, this kind of behavior, you not only repent for it, but you actually change it.
right.
So you don't only feel bad about it, but you actually do something to change it, change the dynamic of how you treat other people. You have that option. So do that if you don't want to lose your share in the world to come. But also what you say, and then we'll be happy to hear others. What you
Hey,
say,
Rabbi. Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to finish this thought. There is a prayer that the Jewish people say called Aleinu, Aleinu, which translates to "It is upon us to," whatever that prayer is. It's said 3 times a day, every day of the year, morning, afternoon, and evening. And it has 2 paragraphs. The second paragraph says that we look forward to a world that is completed, to a world that is perfected by attracting the kingdom of God to earth. And it uses the word, you may have heard of it in Hebrew, tikkun olam. Tikkun olam is the idea of repairing the world. God created a perfect world, then it was made imperfect, and we are spending a lot of time to perfect that world which He created in perfection. So we're anxious to get back to that. But the idea is to perfect this world. So, John, I'm just echoing what you said, to perfect this world with the kingdom of heaven. So you're right. There is a lot of emphasis on what we do in this world and perfecting it. Yeah. So, Steve, what were you going to say?
Yes, sir. So just a question and then a comment. Could you possibly, maybe in the text, group text, if you have that real estate to reference to the credit card? I'm laughing inside because I'm going to try to be kind of candid here. There's this in my old faith tradition. You talked about this. I use this term, the credit card of grace.
Oh,
So, like, if I'm going to go do something that I know has been shown to me that is incorrect or not right, I shouldn't do it. There's this term, well, I'll just apply the grace to this situation. But
right.
so when I heard you say that, that's why I was laughing. I would be curious to see the real estate there. I'd like to read that. And then,
Let
also,
me just say that I have no text that calls
okay.
it a credit card. It's just my way of making it perhaps a little bit easier to access the idea.
Wow. So you came up with that in your own midrash, sort of.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
There is this teaching in Judaism where people will go to the graves of holy people and they will pray there for various things that they would love to see happen, whatever it is, a job, a better marriage, kids should find their spouses, whatever it is. There are some within the Jewish community that hate that idea. Well, where you're going to a grave doesn't that feel like, that doesn't feel Jewish. Others say no. Others travel the world over if they have like a really big desire for something, or could be a health related issue that no doctor knows how to treat. So they may go to various countries, to the graves of the great scholars and righteous people, and say their prayers right there. So when I teach that, many people say, well, what is your connection to the person in the grave? You didn't know them. They died 600 years ago. Why would you go there? So to make it a more accessible teaching, I would use this idea. I would say it's almost, yeah, you don't know them, they don't know you because they died 600 years ago. But the idea is that if the person is righteous or was a scholar, influencer, etc., lived a pious life, imagine that at the top of their tombstone there is a slot with a card that has all of their merits. And what they are saying out of their piety and righteousness is, if you need this credit card for your own personal use, take it, use it, and proverbially put it back for the next person. So when I explain it that way, I see a lot of heads going, oh, that I get that. I get that. So it came out of that kind of a teaching, but there's no text that I'm aware of that talks about a credit card, so to speak.
Thank you, Rabbi, for verbally saying that. And we'll go back and watch it because I think it's amazing to hear you say that, simply because the last point is like, say you go to a funeral and someone's passed away, you find yourself questioning your own, behavior. So,
Yes.
Thus a righteous person, making people question how they're living, and you're just touching on that. So I want to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. So let me add
Yeah.
one more thing, one more teaching that has nothing to do with Pirke Avot, but it's an adjunct teaching to what we were talking about. In the book of Ecclesiastes, I think, which we call in Hebrew Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, it says, better to go to a house of mourning, mourn, than a house of rejoicing. So this was a book written by King Solomon, as far as we understand it. It was one of three books written by King Solomon, probably written towards the tail end of his life. It's very reflective. I think it's 12 chapters of reflection. One of the phrases that comes up most often in the book of Ecclesiastes is, all is vanity, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, things like that. So again, he has this teaching, it's better to go to a house of mourning, mourning, than to a house of celebration. So most people would hear that and say, he must have had a cask of whiskey before he wrote that down. Who in the world would teach that? Anybody that would rather go to a house of mourning than a house of rejoicing? Would you rather go to in Hebrew, we call it a Shiva house. Somebody passes away, the immediate family sits in their home for 7 days, people visit, bring food, etc. Where King Solomon, what, you'd rather go to a Shiva house than a wedding? I mean, that's pretty much what he's saying. Better to go to that than to this one. So the commentaries explain, and I can tell you as a rabbi in America for 25 years, visiting Shiva houses, going to many weddings, performing many weddings, doing eulogies, etc. I can tell you from experience that when you go to a wedding, a lot of it is kind of for the moment, if you will. There's a lot of cheer, a lot of joy. It's somewhat momentary. How do I know? Because when the photographer comes to the table, what do they always say? Okay, everybody, smile. How come nobody, they're not smiling yet? Why do you have to tell them to smile? We're at a wedding. We're at a joyous occasion. But a lot of what you experience at a wedding is beautiful, lovely picture, album is beautiful, perpetuation of the family, etc. At the same time, it kind of it's rich in some things, it's empty in other things. For example, you can't really have a deep discussion with anybody. Maybe it's different at not Jewish weddings. Jewish weddings, they play so loud that you can't hear the person next to you. So you can't even have a deep conversation about anything because you can't hear it. You go to a house of mourning and they talk about the deceased, how they lived, what they said, what we would like to perpetuate, the memory, the deeds, the kindnesses, or whatever. You walk out of a house of mourning and you say, my gosh, what I've learned about life just from these few minutes of listening and talking. I've learned life lessons. I take that with me, which is not exactly what you experience at a wedding. So in that sense, there's so much that we learn from going to a house of mourning or listening to the lives of other people, etc. Now that I've babbled my way through this, I don't exactly remember what this connects to that was previously mentioned, but if one of you do, that's great, and you'll let me know. So were there any other thoughts, reactions, comments before we move to what is probably our last teaching for tonight, which is teaching number 12, if you're looking at that Chabad website on our page. Any other comments, thoughts, reactions about life in the world to come, life in this world? Okay, so here's teaching number 12. It's a three-parter, brief, very brief. Rabbi Yishmael, which is a very unusual name to give to a Jewish kid. So those who are biblically alert, Yishmael, not exactly the kindest things are either said or thought about Yishmael. Even until today, in the Jewish community, Ishmaelites could use a much improved image. That's just my opinion. So for a Jewish kid to be called Yishmael is very unusual. I don't know a single Jewish child named Yishmael. At the same time, the word in Hebrew is very beautiful and noble. God will hear my prayer, my study, whatever. Yishma, God will hear. El, God will hear. So it's a lovely name, but it's so avoided, I think, within the Jewish community because of the connotations that you find in the book of Genesis with Yishmael, etc. So Rabbi Yishmael says, be yielding to a leader. Be yielding to a leader. The Hebrew word for leader that he uses is the word rosh, which means head. Be yielding, respectful, to somebody who is the head of something, or somebody who has a big head, not ego, but a big thinker. You know, in Hebrew, the word rosh means head. Rosh gadol means somebody who doesn't think narrow, but a rosh gadol is like, whoa, boy, do they think big. Could he economically big, spiritually big, whatever. So he says, be yielding to a leader. And he says, be affable to the black-haired. The black-haired is translated in other texts as young people. They have black hair before the hair turns other colors, whatever they are. White, orange, whatever they are. Be pleasing to the young. And the last teaching, he says, is receive every person with cheer. Here it says with joy, but it means cheerfully, receive every person cheerfully. So interestingly enough, Rabbi Yishmael, who was a colleague of the famed Rabbi Akiva, who we have mentioned several times over the last months, a colleague of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Ishmael, he was known for his kindness to all people. So he on his tombstone, it would be written, he was a very nice man. He was kindness to all people. He also had a very important teaching that resonates for Torah scholars, that Torah speaks in understandable human terms. So when the Torah and the 5 books of Moses speaks about the right hand of God, well, if he's incorporeal, if he has no physical body, what are you talking about a right hand? And Rabbi Ishmael would say the Torah, as God dictated it to Moses, speaks in sometimes human terms so that we can more access whatever the teaching is. So it can be speaking about the hand of God, or regarding the flood, God regretted. God has emotions, he can regret. That's the way we can help to understand what's going on in that story. God was jealous, he was angry, disappointed. We don't ascribe human emotions to God, but God, according to Rabbi Ishmael, thinks that God put those terms in so that we could more easily understand on a human level what is happening. Okay, so what is his teaching? His teaching is be yielding to a leader. It's his way of advocating harmony and avoiding conflict, meaning defer to the elders, defer to the ones above you, defer to your boss. Does that mean you have to do everything they say? Not necessarily, but be deferential. Be respectful, deferential to your elders. Be deferential to those more experienced than you, rather than be contentious with them. Respect others, whether they are above you or below you in the ladder. And all of that, when you do that, you demonstrate the greatness of your soul. Your soul demonstrates such an openness that you're not willing to live by these boundaries. Oh, this is higher than me. This is lower than me. I can treat this one this way, the other one that way. It doesn't really matter. No, it's all a demonstration of your expansive soul, that you can include everybody and treat them with commensurate dignity. We learned this term a few weeks ago when one rabbi sends out his 5 students, tell me what's the best characteristic a person can have. And one of them said, a lev tov, a good heart. A good heart is one that's expansive, accepting, understands people, and is willing to share his circle with their circle, no matter where they are on the totem pole. So, and be pleasing to the young. Many candidates for office do that. So without getting political, I just mentioned that, that very often the candidates appeal to the youngins, the young folk. They're looking for something different, something unique. And so he says, be pleasing to the young. And the last part of his teaching, which for me is the most important, is accept all people with cheer. And commentaries say not just pleasantly, don't just greet them and accept them pleasantly, but a niche above pleasant is happy. To be happy, to be with other people, to share time with other people, to accept other people, disagree, agree, just be happy with all of God's creations. Another commentary says, maintain an optimistic view, overall view of humanity. Overall view of humanity. And in the Hebrew, it says that you should accept everyone with cheer. It uses the word kol ha'adam, which literally could mean all people. But one commentary says it means deeper than that. It means the entirety of the person. Accept the entirety of the person. So every person is made up of their better qualities and lesser qualities, better characteristics and lesser characteristics. In a sense, that one teaching really speaks to our age today, where people on one characteristic or one opinion are quick to cross out a person. There's a term that we use today that doesn't exactly come to my mind now, where what is it? We cross them out. There's a crisper term. Maybe you know.
Canceling them.
What is it?
Canceling them.
Thank you. Exactly. Today, that's a popular hobby, to cancel people because of one characteristic that they have, because of one way they lean politically, socially, financially, whatever. How many times, I don't know how many of you on Facebook or other social media, people say, and if you say anything against it, I will unfriend you. I mean, that's a cancel culture. So when it says accept all people with cheer, it doesn't just mean all people, but it also means, according to some of the commentaries, accept the entirety of a person with good cheer, with their good points, their bad points. If they have bad points, try to understand why they might have those bad points. But accept the entirety of the person. Not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do. Yeah. There's more I would say about that, but I'm going to hold off. But okay. So let me just say this. Today, in all my emails, there were different emails sent out by Jewish organizations, national Jewish organizations, and in New York, reacting to the newly elected mayor of New York City. So I mentioned this because there were some emails that were harsh, predicting doom and gloom for the Jewish people, etc., etc. So that was one type of an email. Other types of emails were, listen, we know what we felt before he was elected. We know what we feel after was elected. At the same time, here's what he said during his acceptance speech or whatever. We're going to hold him to what he said. And if he said he wants to eliminate anti-Semitism, we're going to work with him. And if he said that we're going to eliminate whatever, we're going to work with him. So at least the emails that I got today, which were plenty, they kind of fell in these two piles. One was harsh. What happened? Huh? The other one was, okay, this is the reality. How do we work with that reality? How do we work with him? How do we support his better initiatives? How do we do all that? So that to me would have been an example of accept the entirety of the person and also be as optimistic overall about people, about humanity. It's easy to be pessimistic, but try to be optimistic. And I always say that when I used to travel more on buses before we got a car, I used to say that as I look around me on a bus and I see what seems to be religious people, at least by the way they dress, etc., if I see them scowl or frown while they're on the bus, they're just waiting to get off at their right destination. I feel like going over to them and saying, you present yourself as a spiritually aware person, etc. I wish you would change the frown or the scowl to a smile, because what you may be communicating is that you're not happy with the way God runs the world. I never did that. I never walked up to anybody and said, maybe you can, but it was always like how you doing, Robert? It was always kind of a gut feeling. So that's an extension of this idea, to be accepting, look at life optimistically, as positively as possible. And I think that also has a lot of health implications. If you can do that rather than be sour or pessimistic. Anyway, yeah. So that's our time for today. Any last minute questions, comments, reactions? Robert, if when we're done, if you want to stay for like 5 minutes and discuss anything or talk or whatever, I'm happy to do that. Guy, it was nice having you join us today. Um, you're always welcome. And any last comments, last thoughts?
I was just going to say, kind of related to the New York situation is
Okay.
one, nothing gets past Hashem, right? He controls it all and knows what's going on. So, and to me, it could be a huge blessing for the people that are there that want and need to make Aliyah to push them over the edge to get that done. So, could be a
Yeah,
good could be a blessing for many.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I saw a lot of memes like that today on my Facebook feed. Boy, Jews are going to be flocking to Israel. I don't know. It's hard to say. But okay. Listen, I wish everybody a good week. Be happy, healthy, and safe. And God willing, we'll see you next Wednesday. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to write either personally or on the group WhatsApp. And thank you again for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Take
Bye.
care,
So
everybody.
it was fun.
Did want to say one thing, Rabbi.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
didn't want to bring it up in the whole entire group, but it says in 12, it says the Noach, and up in 10 it uses the same verb, Noach, like to be. They say pleasing, and in here they say affable. So it's that same verb. I think it's interesting how they use it two different ways.
And what was
And
the first way?
the first way here in verse 12 is the Noach, and they use it as affable. I didn't even know what affable was. I had to look it up. But and it's the same verb up in 10 where he says pleasing, right?
Yeah.
It says where is it at? Right here. No, nocha. So it says it up there and they use it as pleasing. So I know where they're getting it from, Noah, to rest or like a peaceful
Yes.
rest or to
Right.
rest in or something like that. But I just thought it was interesting, but I didn't want to get too technical in the group chat thingy or whatever,
Yeah. Okay.
But
It's a good question. Basically, I'm looking it up in the Hebrew dictionary. There's a Hebrew word ragua, which has nothing to do with the pasta sauce. Ragua. I'm going to see how they translate it because that's really the word. So here they translate this word ragua, which is the idea of Noach as relaxed, calm, serene, peaceful. Be It's almost like be a flat encephalogram with people. I don't mean medically. You shouldn't be medical. Don't die with people. It just means be pleasant, be nice, be peaceful, be a nice man, No blips, no ups or downs, just be calm, respectful, decent. So that no matter how they translate in English, the Hebrew reflects that.
right.
As a matter of fact, when it comes to the opening of the story of the flood in the Torah portion of Noach, a lot of people interpret Noach's name as this is exactly why he couldn't get more people to go on the ark, because he was too calm and too serene when people came to him saying, "What are you doing? What are you building?" He was too blasé about it. And therefore, 8 people were supposed to be on the ark, and 120 years later, after he built it, there were still only 8 people on the ark. How come? Not one you could convince to change their life. And they say it comes from his name. He was Noach. He was very blasé. Sounds maybe too much of an editorial word, but he was just too, easygoing, too easygoing. But easygoing can have a very positive connotation. So that's the sense of the word Noach. Yeah.
All right. I saw it and I thought it was
No, I
interesting.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll leave you at it. I'll get back to
Okay,
work.
Brooke. Have a great week.
You too.
Thank you. So, Robert, first of all, I want to say, Rivka told me that when when I end the recording, I should press a button called end. But I don't
Yes.
know if that ends the recording or it's going to end us. So let me do this.
Okay.
Let me do this. I'm going to press that end, and if it ends us, I'm going to reconnect to Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, so
Very, very
I'm
good.
gonna give it a whirl.
Okay.